Are you an NPC? Are you a non-player character? Oh, what an awful thought, right? All of the nines and sixes in the atmosphere just screamed a little bit. I felt it in the future. I felt it now from the future. Are certain Enneagram types NPCs and are other Enneagram types not NPCs? Well, what an NPC really means, besides being a non-player character, is not prepared to change. It's when you're in your pattern. It's when you're doing your pattern without thinking, when you are in your avatar loop, when you're doing the simulation programming that was assigned to you from birth. So no, all types can be NPCs of their own versions. However, there are certain types that do look like what we think of as NPCs. Like colloquially, like what people see as an NPC is someone who's like screaming about politics or like, you can't do that, trust the science. Or, conversely, those people are also like, look at them, they're QAnon. You know what I mean? So it's like and a lot of them are sixes or have a six wing, a six fix. Sad fact, I'm sorry, but it's true. I have a wing six, all right. Don't shoot the messenger. And a lot of them are social or not social, blind anyways. So there's that aspect to it that we see as NPC, or the person who just goes to work every day, clocks in, clocks out, eats their TV dinner, watches Netflix, goes to bed, rinse, repeat. And the great tragedy of this is that when you're in your programming, you don't know that you're in your programming. You don't know that there's other options because our ego is like a box around our head. And that's what our personality programming is like too. It's like you only see the world through this box until you realize you're in a box and you start to do self-work or learn about the Enneagram or start being like attentive to your patterns. So NPC really only means, like I said, it's like someone who's stuck in the thrall of their pattern, stuck in the thrall of their programming. There is no type that is actually an NPC, only people who refuse to step outside of that program. And the thing is that when we're in that program, we can be manipulated because, like anyone who's well versed in propaganda and advertising in the media and learns a lot of these tools like hypnotic language, NLP, they play to personality types. They play to those inherent programs. They play to fear programs. They play to guilt programs. They play to shame programs. And you can be manipulated very easily. So that's also why it's an NPC mode, right? And, all types fall victim to this. They fall prey to these patterns, whether it's interpersonally or in the greater world. Like as a seven, you could say, could be easily manipulated by feeling cut off from something, YOLO, or I mean, FOMO. And it's like the YOLO about the FOMO. It's like, I gotta have it. So like maybe it's a lot of sevens and seven fixers that go crazy at those like Black Friday things. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there where they're like, oh no, it's gonna I have to get it all while it's on sale, or I might miss out. Or maybe it's the sixes, the SP6s who are like, don't want to miss their deal. But we all fall into these patterns. And sometimes we might analytically look at the patterns, like on paper, it's like, oh, I'm doing my Enneagram thing. But it's not till you're like noticing it in your body and paying attention to like catching yourself in the act that you can actually start to work with it. And it's not like an overnight thing. You just suddenly move out of these patterns. It's it's like a habitual thing that builds over time. Like you're basically rewiring your brain. You're basically rewiring your coping mechanism response, your trigger response, even if it's not like a trigger per se. It's like if you go into that heightened emotional state or that physical state, and that can even be dissociating if you're in fear, like go into that survival pattern, then you're in your NPC mode. And like it happened to me the other night, which is, I wanted to do a video about this ages ago and I forgot, but I caught myself the other night. I like someone says something that was like adjacent to something, like kind of pseudo adjacent to something that makes me pop off, that makes me angry, that I have that I then did some self work on after when I caught myself. But I was like, oh wow, I like just went on this like 5-minute spiral and I worked myself up and I was like, oh whoa, I just entered into a loop. I entered into an automatic program loop where I was just nah, 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 nah. And then I sat with it and I was like, okay, well, what what really happened there? And you have to ask yourself, like, what am I making this mean about me? What does this mean about me? What am I really angry about? Or what am I really worried about? What am I in fear about? What am I, what do I feel like I'll lose? What do I feel like will be taken from me? Um, or what will be limited from me, like what won't I have access to, or whatever comes up where it's like an ego hit, like, oh, this says that I'm not worthy, this says that I'm not lovable, this says that I'm not enough, like whatever that thing is, that can put us into the fight or flight, the NPC mode. So while in the greater world, you might be able to put certain types into the NPC model of people with certain personality types who are in the thrall of their pattern. And you could say that that could be like the 369 trifixation, but it's not actually true. It's like, yeah, like those ones might be the ones that are more likely to show up to their job every day and not set their life on fire and go out there causing like a monumental chaos when things aren't working out for them. But you, if you're not that type, or you're thinking like, well, I don't want to be that type, other types are still doing their own version of that NPC thing. So you can see like where it's like, like if you get into like a 269 pattern of like serving and overgiving and like self-sacrificing, that can be the mode, right? For a 378 or like even a 358 on some level, it could be like just dominating, conquering, like going into like nonstop work mode, like rise, conquer, just acquire, get the title, get the money, get the bag, get the girl, get the champagne, get the poos, like whatever. So where and like based on your type, you probably hate certain, you probably look at certain trifixations for certain core personality types as NPCs. And I was listing ones that I view as sort of NPCs in some ways when they're in their pattern because it specifically annoys me because of my type. So like, but yours might be like somebody like a 378 or a 358, like high achiever, show off, got the mansions, got the Benz, and you're like, wow, they're materialistic and they're greedy and whatever. But they're just the same as you. Whatever your type is, you're doing a version of that, but it's the one that you live by and you base all of your belief systems about, of course, not consciously, because these are unconscious programs. So how do you stop being an NPC? Well, like I said, you be present with it. You catch yourself. Notice when your heart's up, your heart rate. Notice when you feel triggered, when you feel activated, when someone's like pissing you off, when you feel in danger, when you feel like this aggressive surge, or when you feel like the surge to like dissociate or like erase yourself or just like fade into the background to hide, like that's when you're moving into your NPC programming. So be present with it, breathe into it, and just like accept it. Is the other thing, is like, okay, I'm safe. Tell yourself I'm safe. What's actually coming up for me here? Abandonment, fear of not being safe, kicked out of the tribe, fear of being cut off, fear of being seen as a loser, fear of the connection dropping, fear of not being loved, fear of not being appreciated, fear of like people not respecting you, fear of them invading your space. Like whatever those triggers are for you, pay attention to them, because it's usually right after that happens that we go into our NPC programming. So if you don't want to be an NPC, not prepared to change, then presence, presence to change. Presence and change. I'm making this up on the fly. Now present and open to change or something. You get my drift? And so after you ask yourself, like, what's really coming up for me? And you see it, okay, breathe. Okay, I'm safe. This probably is an exaggeration. This probably isn't quite true, is it? Okay, how can I react differently than what I would usually? What is my impulse to do right now? Let's try an experiment. Let's try a different reaction, even if it doesn't work out. Just try it. Treat it like a little scientist, like a little alien on the planet Earth or the firmament or whatever, the simulation, and just treat it as like an invitation to try something new, an invitation to a new pathway, an invitation to a new possibilities. It doesn't have to mean anything about you. It doesn't have to mean you know, and then whatever happens after doesn't really mean anything about you. You know, if you're like a nine and your automatic response is to sort of fade, all right, I'm gonna leave the room. I'm gonna go have a nap. I'm gonna go on my iPad and not engage. What about instead, you take some nice deep breaths and just say your opinion and be okay, there's some conflict that's happening. Okay, get comfortable with it. All right, let's do the dance. Let's do the dance. And I'm not going to make it make me feel threatened. I'm not going to make it make me feel in danger. Or like, oh God, I'm locating myself. Like, fuck, fuck, fuck. What do I do? I'm going to get attacked now. No, no, just like lean into it. All right. Yeah, attack me, baby. This is an experiment. And when we're in the thrall of our pattern, everything feels life or death. It feels like the most important thing. So it feels true and it feels like, but just have grace with yourself and just accept, okay, like zoom out almost out of your body, like, and see yourself as like a little avatar, a little um character might be helpful. Like, what does this little character really want here? Like, is this really a life or death situation, or is there like maybe a solution to this? It's more about just like stepping outside of the box, right? Or like, if you had a friend who had the same problem, what would you say to them? Like, what would be some ideas you would help them with? What advice would you give them? Because it's a lot easier to see somebody else's problem than we can see our own. So sometimes just taking a step back, okay, I'm not in danger. It's not the end of the world if XYZ does happen or doesn't happen. So let's just have a moment here. And that's how you begin to rewire those patterns. And then they begin to like become less important, less stressful, less. And that's when you move out of the NPC mode and into the main character mode. You're in control of your life. You're behind the wheel. There's a lot of things you can do in just the day to day, right? So, and like this can be as simple as literally you walking down the street, getting on the subway, going to work. It can be literally from point A to point B where you just start to notice your patterns. Like when I used to have to ride the subway, which I fucking hated, I would get triggered a lot because I don't like people being near me or in my space unless they're hot. So, you know, this was even before 2020. So, you know, I'd get like very like triggered and like have to move away. Ew, move away. Or I would like get up and go to the other side of the subway. Like I really couldn't take it. Or somebody smelled a little, like it was a whole thing. So like there's nothing worse than being on a packed subway and you're sitting and a bunch of guys get on and they're like they're sweaty ball height with your fucking nose and they reek of cologne and they're like on their phone. It's like I'm so glad I don't live in Toronto anymore. Um, so anyways, it's like literally could just be as simple as that. It could also be as simple as paying attention to the patterns with your partner. When do you start feeling sticky, unwanted, neglected, abandoned, rejected, taken advantage of? You know what I mean? Start being present with it, breathe with it. What am I making this mean about me? Is this really what it means about me? Can I deal with this a different way than I usually do? And if it, again, like if it doesn't work out, that's okay. If it doesn't end up with the favorable outcome, okay, what else can I do? It's just instead of doing like this thing, like the straight line, the thing that you usually do, it's like just shift a little bit, try it out. Okay, it doesn't have to be life or death, even though it can feel that way. And another good way to tell if you're an NPC mode is if you keep just repeating the same thing over and over and getting the same results. It's like if you feel stuck, it's because you're just doing the same thing over and over, and you might think you're doing things differently, but you're probably not really. It's like, you know, when Mario gets stuck, like he gets off the path, off the rainbow road or whatever and he gets stuck in this like weird holographic digital like rift in the game, and he can't figure out. So he just keeps doing this and doing this, and we can often get into that pattern. So it's like if you're wanting to change your life, then you have to start looking at like, well, what would the person who has the like get clear on what you want, what you do want, or at least a direction that would make you feel excited and alive and move into that direction. Even if you change it again, that's okay. Who cares? It's life. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. And okay, well, what would that person do every day? how would that person feel about themselves? What would they tell themselves? What would they dress like? What would they, in a way that you can do that. So if it's like, well, I want to be on Dynasty, so but I don't have the money to buy the ball gowns. Okay, well, can you just make yourself feel a little bit more fabulous in the day to day? Maybe you can go down to the Dollar Tree and get yourself a lead covered um, baubles and zhuzh it up for yourself, you know? So it's like, doesn't have to be like, oh, well, then, you know, I do this and then I'll finally, no. So just go for like the lowest hanging fruit. What can I do today? That like if I take that person that I would like to be like that, or that shift, that life that I would like to have, reverse engineer it, like how did you get there? What changes did you make? So if you're like sleeping in till noon every day and you're like, I really want to like be a successful businesswoman or something, it's like, well, then you're probably gonna have to like get up at like 7 o'clock or something like that. Or if you're like, I want to be a writer, this is a problem for me. And one of the reasons I got into self-work. So it's like, if you're not actively fucking writing for hours every day, you're not going to be a writer. Silly hoe. So if you want something, then you have to start doing the thing. That's like obvious, but you know, most of us do. Well, I don't have time. You can make time. If you really want something, you can always make time. Okay? Like you find a way, because what you do is you shift your focus. Like even though, okay, yeah, I got to go to that job and then I have my second job and then I have to like, I don't know, look after my kid or like fuck my husband or whatever it is. It's like, okay, but start looking at it through the lens of like, if it's like writing, for example, it's like, I'm a writer, I write, like I'm a writer, like I'm finishing a novel, blah, 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 blah. Then make that your focus. And then everything else is like through that lens. So it's like, oh, now I see that I have 15 minutes. Not ideal, but you know what? I'll do it on my fucking phone. I'll go hide in the fucking bathroom and write on my phone for 15 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's just like shifting that perspective to be what you want. And this is what I'm kind of going through right now myself. So I'm excited to report on it. It's been a grind for me to shift out of like certain habits, but it becomes a snowball. It's like it's hard at first when you're trying to change those NPC patterns, and they could be related to your specific personality type, or they could be related to like trauma responses, or just like limiting beliefs that have like built over the years, you know, because of like these little experiences that just kind of accumulate over and over, and they create our belief system. So it's like, it does require effort at the beginning to rewire that. It's uncomfortable. You're going to have to breathe through it. You're going to have to say affirmations. I can do this. I want it, like whatever, but it'll be worth it, because it's like you do hit this, like it's like going up a hill, like pushing a rock up a hill, and then you hit a peak and then suddenly it's flat and it's like, oh, it's just like a lot easier now. And then you get far enough and then it becomes like, woo, like going down on a roller coaster, and then a roller coaster, and then everything just starts to flow like that, like at that speed. And you know, and you have to go through that journey, right? Because if you didn't go through this journey, you wouldn't have been prepared for the wow part of it. So trust the process, trust that you're exactly where you're meant to be. And if you're feeling stuck, or you feel like you're doing NPC shit and you don't know what to change, just start really small. Think about like, okay, well, if you don't have like some big dream, what is something that you would like to do that would make you feel really happy and excited, like, or that would feel meaningful to you, that would light your spirit up and like activate your heart? Like maybe that's, you know, try out some things. Like maybe I'll volunteer at an animal shelter. Oh, wait, not for softies though, I don't think, because I definitely couldn't do it. I would be crying all the time. But you know, just start trying out different things and see. So if you're not 100% sure, just throw some spaghetti at the wall. Take advice from the 7, just throw some spaghetti at the wall. And often like that's when the path appears. It's like, if you're just open to change, it shows the universe, right? It shows the simulation that you're willing to try new things. And then the simulation will start throwing things at you that you might be interested in.